For the financial industry and the fund admin industry, where we work closely, speed doesn't matter. You know, accuracy matters. You don't rely on 100% on the AI. You have to have a AI plus human collaboration at this point. I'm like saying that this will always be there. The way the pace is changing, it could be 100% soon, maybe 2 years, 5 years, who knows, or 10 years. But at this time, the real actual best practice would be combining human plus AI together. Now there's no barrier to entry. You have never ever coded, you have no experience, doesn't matter. You can jump in and do vibe coding and build any application. The only limitation is what imagination you have and what type of problem you want to solve.
Welcome to Practical AI, the show that cuts through the hype and gets to what's really working. My name is Julian Berto, and today's guest is Kumar Ujjwal, a 2X founder, Stanford trained product leader, and AI and machine learning patent holder. He was the first product manager at Punch, which scaled to $500 million exit, and now he's building DwellFi, a fintech platform using AI and blockchain to modernize fund administration. Kumar, it's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be on your podcast and talk about AI.
Yeah, it's great, really great to have you here. So you've been building in AI for over a decade now, long before ChatGPT made it mainstream. What first drew you into AI, and what's kept you here through all the different hype cycles?
Yeah, very, very good question, actually. Um, so I think, yes, I got into AI during, I think, 2010 or 11 time. I don't even remember that now. But so I've been trained in computer science, and so always fascinated about building applications, software, and AI. Uh, what actually got my very strong inclination towards AI was I was actually taking a class from Stanford Online from Andrew Yang in, I think, in 2010 or 11. I don't exactly remember that time, but he's a great teacher, I would say. This is my personal experience, and he explained. Uh, this is also available right now. If anyone wants to take that class, it will be great. So uh, he explained the entire AI and deep learning in that class from a very, very foundational, or I will say from the first principle. So you can actually understand how these things work at a very atomic level. So what is a deep neural network, how it works, what is exactly a gradient function, and how that basically works, and then how you take each function and create a neural network, how these neural network actually is done through vector multiplication to a matrix multiplication, why parallel versus series works, like the real core foundation. And then you can actually apply that using, it gives you a lot of problem to solve. And when you start doing that, that basically drew me really deep into this space. And then what happened is, while I was learning that, I had an opportunity to actually build real time application on those things at that time. So I was actually, I think I was at Macy's, uh, and then working on the financial side of the company in the engineering team. And I got an opportunity to explore this thing to actually build real time application. So took that, and then I think, and Macy's was also actually at that time pretty much innovative. So in San Francisco, we have a head technical headquarter, and then there's a lot of lab where people can do experiments and things were going. And then I had the opportunity to actually do hackathons, build real time applications, and all those things. And that was like the a real first exposure to AI for me. I had done AI in back in the days and done machine learning and all those things in school, but when you actually take the from the schoolwork and then bring the actual practical application, that's a whole different thing. And that led me to get into more deeper into image uh, recognition problems. And because at that time, that was the time when NVIDIA also uh, was doing really great because of their ImageNet application was launched, which was one of the Stanford big uh, uh, AlexNet was that, sorry, where basically they started building the application where you can actually recognize cat and dog. And then further, more reinforcement learning and transfer learning came into the picture where you can take that whole data set of a large uh, model, and then one of the model was inception model, which was trained on entire world of on the ImageNet data set. ImageNet is the largest data set of image in the world, and it was trained on that. So you can actually upload a picture of a dog, it will tell you it's a dog. A cat, it will tell you a cat. But then you can take that same model and do a transfer learning with a separate set of data. So imagine you have a labeled data for all the dogs, where you can say it's a Labrador or it's a Bulldog, and then you train the last layer of the network. Now it's can actually predict when you upload an image of a dog, it will can tell you if it's a Labrador or it's a. So that was very profound and transforming, because now you can take a labeled data set, and then just by training the last layer of the network, you can basically make a huge difference and build applications. And then, so when I learned that, then I took that application and then applied into actual practical world in Macy's. What I did is I took the entire catalog of Macy's, the clothing, and then you can basically can recognize if it's a dress, it's a pant, it's a shirt, and then the further application was having the recommendation from that. So it's basically taking the academic knowledge and applying actual practical application. That what actually took me into this space deeper and deeper, and then never came back.
So it sounds like obviously a lot of practical applications, right? A lot of practical experience. And now even so, not just working with AI, but also now having an element of working with blockchain as well. What's been kind of the common thread for you in terms of how you approach scaling emerging tech, right? Because there's so much new, it's not just a new technology, there's potentially new compliance issues, new regulation issues that you have to face. How do you kind of approach scaling
Yep.
emerging technology?
So the blockchain thread in my life started actually in very early stage. Also, I think 2010 or 11, when the Bitcoin was very early stage. So one of my friend, he used to Heath Matlock is his name. But he used to be a Bitcoin core developer in early stage, and he used to hang out with in the same IRC channel where Satoshi used to hang out. And he was fortunate enough to get an exposure of the Bitcoin first 100 people, I guess. All the people who used to hang out in that IRC channel received that white paper. He was one of them. He also got the white paper, and that's when I got exposure to Bitcoin, because I still remember that very clearly. That day he called me and he said, like, there is something called Bitcoin, and it's like 2 cents or something, but it's going up and you can mine it on computer. And I was like, what is this? What is Bitcoin? And that was my first exposure. And then I through him, and then that's how I got involved in the crypto, and we used to mine that on computers, um, and then explore other things in the whole Bitcoin ecosystem, and then cryptocurrency. There was actually some other project before Bitcoin. There was other projects too, but we never. But Bitcoin was actually created, but before that there was some other cryptocurrency projects too, but which never came as like Bitcoin. But eventually Bitcoin became the real anonymous, and then from there keep doing other work in this space, and then keeping the pace with the exactly what was happening. Then Ethereum came, Ethereum ICO happened, then ICO boom came, then actually people started building applications around that. So DeFi applications came, and then DEXs came, and we built like a DEX platform on 0x protocol. So those kind of things. So it kept me always been that. And then when I started DwellFi, it's actually a merge all together. Yeah.
So, obviously experience with AI, experience with blockchain. Where did the motivation come from for starting DwellFi?
So DwellFi started. So I got into finance like setting up a venture fund, investing into early stage startup, then got involved into private equity deals in GPU financing, and then data center infrastructure and all those things. While I was doing all those, I actually got exposure to like how all those things work in the back end. So setting up a fund in different jurisdiction, Cayman, BVI, Dubai, and then uh, how reporting works. Like people used to send me the report, or then KYC, ML filing, all these things, and then working with different administrators and other corporate services. And then one thing quickly struck was it's very um, like old school and not technical technology driven. So, and I always had a entrepreneur kind of mindset, so I thought like this is an opportunity here to disrupt this space. So why not we start this? And my co-founder in DwellFi, Deepak, who he was at Citadel Securities at that time, and he also had similar kind of experience while working in the financial infrastructure. So that's where we both decided to start DwellFi. So early days when DwellFi was starting, the idea was around more tokenization first approach, because the crypto market was going up, and our idea was something how we can, because we were working with funds, so how to make like more a kind of a fund where people can participate and build equity early stage. So that's where we idea was to tokenize the fund. How can we build a first tokenized fund? And then the other thing came into at the same time was Dow LLC was passed in Wyoming. So we decided to leverage that and build a Dow enabled fund. So the first experiment we did is we set up a Dow LLC in Wyoming, and then bought a house in that and merged it, and then tried to tokenize it. And we did that. And from regulatory perspective, it all worked. Then I had a friend from Stanford who actually had a big real estate firm. So he introduced me to one of his friend in New York, and they had a big $200 million apartment building in Hoboken, and they had like a bunch of high scale apartments. So he liked the idea of like, why not tokenize one of these apartments? And then if that can work, then we can tokenize the whole building. And I said, yeah, this is an amazing opportunity. Let's do that. So we started working on tokenizing that particular one asset. So doing technical was very easy because we have done that. So it's not problem. But then we realize it's a very high touch product, because it's not just tokenizing. Now, okay, if you tokenize it, who will own that one building? Who can live in that? What type of rights you have to create in the smart contract? So, like, it's more when, and then who will we have the maintenance and how you will manage it? Once you go deeper and deeper, you realize that it's more of a service business than a software business. But we always wanted to build software. So that was a realization where we said, okay, this is not the right idea. Then we pivoted and we got into more like towards tokenizing funds instead of like a building or something. And then what we did is we got in a customer early stage. It was a real estate fund actually, and we tokenized. It was $120 million. So we tokenized that fund, and that was the right approach, because then you can bring it on chain. You can bring the real value of tokenization, like equity swap, collateralization, lending, these kind of thing. And that's where the DwellFi actually started with.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how you kind of navigated those different pivots, right? Obviously, again, comes back to practical applications, right?
Yep.
Trying it out in the real world, seeing how it works, and then course correcting it as we go. And on our last conversation that we had, you mentioned that we were, entering a moment where businesses that don't adopt AI are going to be left behind. Where are you seeing the biggest opportunities and maybe even the biggest mistakes that companies are making when it comes to AI adoption today?
Yeah, it's a great question and really loaded question. I would say where let's start where the biggest opportunity is, and then we can talk about where the big mistakes is. And it's based on truly my opinion and experience. So, uh, I would say the biggest opportunity right now is uh, in kind of service industry, because where the AI, which we use today, ChatGPT and other large language models, they're pretty good at mimicking something which human can do, but on a repetitive task and low friction tasks, which means like it's kind of a mundane job, but at the same time you are not relying on very strategic decisions and all those things, because they're not yet there where you can leverage them 100% for like a to give an example, if I have two solutions, AI solutions, where I'm completely running an AI agent autopilot for making a $100 million decision to investment decision, or even $1 million investment decision, that will not be it will never be that accurate, or its performance will not be that great versus a really experienced investment manager who's been invested his whole life doing that, correct? But if you combine these two together, great investment manager with uh, a AI agent, which actually taking care of his mundane task, like doing some research, getting all this information, and then this investment manager has all the refined work, and then he can use his own experience to define the strategy, then it's a great. So that is the actual practical way today to use this thing. And this is just one example, but in anything where you have mundane task, repetitive task, that is the ideal way to do it. And that's why you also see like in coding, 80, 60, 80, 90% code has been generated by AI, but still been reviewed by the managers and then go and merge into the code pipeline. You don't 100% rely on that, okay, just generate, push it into production, and then everything will work, correct? So that's where we are. And this obviously gives you the second, like what is the actual implementation where you make mistakes. So you don't rely on 100% on the AI. You have to have a AI plus human collaboration at this point. I'm like saying that this will always be there. The way at pace is changing, it could be 100% soon, maybe 2 years, 5 years, who knows, or 10 years. But at this time, the real actual best practice would be combining human plus AI together.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing across the board as well with a few different companies that we've worked with. It's not looking at AI as the silver bullet that's going to magically solve whatever problem that you might have in certain processes. It also isn't going to fix any fundamentals that you might have wrong in your business. If your data is not clean, if the processes are not working, it doesn't matter what you throw at it. It's not going to suddenly fix things. But if the fundamentals are working and you have a AI augmented human
Yes,
working the process, then they can be that much more efficient. I think that's where we're seeing the most impact. Uh,
exactly.
so
Yep.
for industries like fund administration, right, financial services. I mean, for us, we work a lot in the insurance space that aren't exactly historically got a track record for fast adoption. What is kind of slowing things down, or where are you seeing some companies maybe speed things up?
Yep. So especially for the financial industry and the fund admin industry, where we work closely, speed doesn't matter. Accuracy matters, and that is the one of the biggest thing in this industry, because amount of work they do today, uh, most of like the big chunk of that work goes into proofreading, QA of these material. Because think about, you generated a capital call notice, correct? And it's all generated by AI, and you're 100% relying on that AI. There, how many places the error can happen, and the impact is how big, I'll tell you. So error could be very small, and AI extracted the data from some LPA documents and all those things. Okay. And let's say I did a one small mistake of a routing number here and there, or an account number, one number different or less or more, and you send this notice, capital notice to your LP, and the LP wired the money. Either the money will never get to that point, or it will be wired to some other account. Now that's fixing that problem itself is a big mess. By and it happened just because of one small thing, which you just 100% relied on that one. Or in capital call, and just giving an example, you created a notice and you didn't, the AI did mistake in doing proper calculation and give the wrong number. Now your LP is freaking out why my numbers are wrong, and now you're going back and doing the same work which AI did to calculate. Now you're doing manually, correct? So anything which is produced by AI in this industry need to be accurate, and that's where accuracy matters a lot. So 100% reliance on the AI system doesn't work. So the AI system need to be built in a way that is already considering a, a proof of work. So in DwellFi, what we call is binary QA. So binary QA is like is 0 or 1. So either it's right or it's wrong. So if it's right, it will produce it, and if it has any chances of error, it will not produce, but bring the human in the loop so that you can go and check. Yes, it will not dramatically, significantly reduce your work, which basically, think about if you do 100% from AI, a capital call notice generation, just to give you an example, it could be done in like 5 minutes to 10 minutes, hundreds of them, correct? But even if you have 1% error in that, all of these files, you are creating a huge problem uh, later on, correct? But now, if you bring human in the loop, you cut the time by 50%, but now you have 100% accuracy. You still have a huge win because you have cut the time by 50%, correct? And the third layer of that is basically built in a way it leverages reinforcement learning. So every time human basically is correcting that thing, it's learning that workflow, learning that process. So it's getting better and better. So even if you start with a benchmark of 50% accuracy and 50% time reduction, like in a year or two, it might go to like 80%. So it always upside where you started instead of reverse when you 100% relying on AI and just saying, okay, just do whatever it's producing. So that's the key difference.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm just curious to bring it kind of closer to home a little bit more now into DwellFi specifically. Over the next 6 to 12 months, what's the biggest challenge that you're focused on? Is it scaling, customer adoption, data security, or something else?
So as an early stage startup, scaling is always a challenge. So scaling is what scaling in a sense, like when we mostly, our key customers are like large enterprise customers. So large enterprise customers have few things. One is the adoption. So it takes time, but also it's important for them for having these kind of thing like data security. Then you have accuracy in the system, in the model built in, and how these models can be further getting improved. So eventually where you start, you get better and better, not like going reverse, correct? So those kind of thing. So building this entire infrastructure from the ground up is what we focus on, and scaling with a large enterprise. Then the third big problem in this whole thing is data security. So when you serve large enterprise, data is very critical, and nobody wants your data to be like basically sent out from your own wall garden, and it could go to like OpenAI or any other. People don't want that. So how you can deploy all these things, entire solution in their own infrastructure, correct? So that is the second layer. So we have built the entire application, and this was another thing because me and my co-founder, especially my co-founder, his background is building large-scale infrastructure at very large corporations, like for Walmart Labs, and so he have managed cloud of $1 billion budget and scalability. So you've seen that at scale, like planet scale solutions. So when we built the solution, and we had an idea that these are our customers, so we built from that perspective, that ground up, that you can deploy this whole entire solution in anyone's their own closets, like in their own data center, co-location, in their own cloud or a managed cloud of ours. So that's how we have built it. And these are the challenges you face when you're building something like a large enterprise scale products.
Yeah, I find that always fascinating. It hits close to home for me. I've spent time previously running a business development team for an emerging tech startup in the AI space focused on healthcare, selling into enterprise insurance, enterprise pharma. Yeah, I'm sure you can understand the regulatory concerns around that. It's again, same issues, right? Data constraints and all of that, year-long sales cycles that take a long time to go through all of the compliance hoops. Uh, how does that impact things for you from a scaling perspective? Like, I'm curious, where are you, typically being able to generate the conversations to be able to get in the room in the first place? Is it warm network? Like, how are you approaching being able to have enough conversations to, as an early stage startup, enough cash flow to kind of keep growing in the way that you want to grow?
Yep. So the twofold answer to that. One answer is industry warm connection. So one which was a good thing for us, what happened is, I would say we were blessed or something which through which we got like really good industry connections and advisors, and they basically looked into what we are building, and they believed on the vision, and then they partnered with us, and they were the people who actually introduced us to a lot of people in the industry. So that is one. And then second, the work we do, we publish those work for the industry, and then people see the results. And that was the other thing which started doing a lot of inbound for us. So it's like, first we had some initial believers and who believed in us and who let us get into the industry, opened the door for us, and then all the work we did, they gave us more validation, and that validation started bringing all the inbound.
Mm,
So that's how it's all happened.
makes sense. Yeah, it's good. You need that initial door to be opened for you a little bit, especially
Yeah.
coming into a different industry, but then building up from there. And so for business leaders who, who are listening, who know that AI is important, but maybe have no idea where to start, what's the playbook for them? How do you go from idea to actual implementation without getting lost in the hype, right? We've seen the statistics from, recent research of the amount of projects that are actually AI projects that are failing. How can people maybe avoid some of those common pitfalls?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And especially nowadays when the vibe codes are so this anyone can build any application. So think about uh, again, this I think this is a twofold thing. If you are like a one person and want to build some application, correct? Uh, so the good thing is now there's no barrier to entry. You have never ever coded, you have no experience, doesn't matter. You can jump in and do a vibe coding and build any application. The only imagination and limitation is what imagination you have and what type of problem you would want to solve. So if you're a creative person, you actually understand the true value of the problem, you can build the application. And then you can easily test that in the market and then iterate over it as many times as you want until you get the right thing. So anyone who has experience or creativity or ever worked in product or industry and was limited from that, okay, I need a developer to build this, is now limitless. They can go build whatever they want. So that's a good. And so the pitfall thing in that scenario is, yes, you can experiment, run very fast, but if you don't do methodically, then that's where the pitfall happens. So you have to follow the still, like people say it's not lean startup is gone and all, but still believe that that methodology is still there and you have to follow that. So if you're building an application, you have to understand who is your target customer and then build the first prototype very fast and target your initial customer ICP, and then take the feedback from their experience and then apply into your product and then do it until you get to the perfections, and then you will have the adoption. So as long as you're following that core principle or first principle of building a startup or a company, you can you can basically build a successful company. But when you are building a B2B product, same thing, but depending on like what type of industry you're focusing on, and that's where different type of challenge comes in. So if you are trying to get into a very old school industry, then yes, building application is one thing, But selling into that industry is a bigger challenge because building is so easy now. Anyone can build it. Now, how you have to network yourself to get in front of the right people who can use your product, give you feedback, and then you basically build that. That is the core challenge you should focus on. And building the product is easy these days. So that's how you have to think about. So barrier to entry is very low.
What about for someone that is in one of these older, more traditional industries, right? Like financial services, and maybe, as a CEO knows that AI needs to be a priority, but maybe it's not part of their strategic priorities for 2025, but they know it's probably going to be something they need to focus on going into 2026. If they had to start small, like what's the focal point there? Where should they really be looking at implementing AI to have the best chance of success in implementation?
So this is very common conversation I have been doing with the senior people and CEOs and very senior people in the industry. And what I always suggest them, which has always resonated with them, is start with the lowest hanging fruit with the highest impact. And that's where, because now you are taking an asymmetric bet in your organization. So your downside is very, very small, but your upside is exponential. And how you do that is you basically pick anything which is very high time consuming work or mundane work or something which your employee doesn't want to do that, something like that. But if you can automate that, then two things happen successfully. If you can automate that, one, you basically take that employee and the people who are working on this and then take them and put into a more meaningful work where they get more engaged and excited. Second, you reduce the cost also of the operating those things. So you have two upside. One is the cost reduction, time, faster time efficiency, and the third is employee satisfaction. So all these things are a bigger upside. And downside is if it doesn't work, you are not losing technically anything. Yes, you will lose some money and some resources which you deployed for this one, but you also have to think about it. It's a learning. So you did an experiment and you learned. It didn't work. It's fine, but you actually learned which you can apply into the second experiment. So the downside is very, very low and upside is very high. So it's a asymmetric bet, and that's how you should think about it.
Yeah, I think that's a really crucial point. It's one of the reasons for us, we really focus typically when we work with organizations is on sales, because the average salesperson is only selling 30 to 40% of their time. The rest of the time, they're bogged down by mundane administrative tasks, whether it's complex proposals, whether it's, filling out an outdated CRM, whatever it might be. There's a lot of tasks there that are repetitive, that are relatively easy to implement for an AI to at least do the bulk of the work, so that you can then free up the time of the sales rep to actually focus on revenue generating activities. So it has, like you said, asymmetric upside with limited downside because it's relatively easy to test. So Kumar, I know we're kind of coming up on time here. I want to be mindful of that. This has been incredibly valuable. Where can listeners go to learn more about you, more about DwellFi?
Yeah, you can connect me on LinkedIn. You can go to DwellFi website, learn about that. I'm also available on Twitter, but not that active on X. But in LinkedIn is the easiest way to get connected with me, and I'm active on that one.
Great. Well, thanks again, Kumar. And to our listeners, if today sharpened your AI playbook, hit subscribe and share practical AI, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Kumar.
Thank you.